The holiday season's over?
Not quite.
Not yet.
But we're in the home stretch here.
We are. One more. Let's see. Today, we're recording on the 20th of December. So that's a Friday. We've got this weekend, the last big shopping weekend.
Mm-hmm.
How's it been since we last spoke pre-Black Friday?
Yeah, it's been tiring, but it's been fun. It is a mile a minute around here during this season. If you've been lucky enough to get into the store, you've probably seen a bit of it. But yeah, I'm always tired out by the end of this for sure. But it really is a lot of fun to get to interact with so many people and to get so many games onto tables.
Yeah. Have there been any surprises as far as like, wow, we have sold out of this game, or we're selling a ton of this game? Anything that you didn't expect?
So I knew we had a few people waiting for SETI, SETI.
I did not know that, by the way.
I knew we had a couple of people who were waiting for it. One person in particular has been calling every week just saying, hey, any updates on when it's coming in? Clearly super excited about it, which I love. He apologized every time he called, but honestly, I'm just glad people care that much about games. He was the first one to come in and get his copy when they arrived. But what did shock me is we sold through every copy we got within, 5 hours?
Yeah. I was putting together the newsletter this week. I was like, okay, we got SETI, that's a new one. So I put in the newsletter, and I noticed that the quantities are 0. And I was like, oh, someone screwed up. It came in, because I saw it on the shelf. It came in, but we forgot to add the quantities to the system. So I go and check. It's like, nope, all the quantities got added. And they all got sold within a few hours. I was like, well, I guess that's not going in the newsletter.
Yeah, that was nuts. So not the one we've sold the most of, but the one that surprised me the most. I think it's great. It looks like an interesting game. And the subject matter is up my alley. I love radio astronomy, but
I think it's a pretty heavy, long game.
Yeah.
I was at PAX Unplugged, and I sat down next to some folks who were playing a copy of the game, and they were just finishing up. And I said, so what do you think? How was the game? They're like, yeah, we're just about done. 5.5 hours later.
Yeah.
I was like, whoo.
Oh, so about as long as it took us to sell every single copy we got.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of what makes it so surprising that it sold as quickly as we did. It's not one that I saw a ton of buzz about other than the 2 customers who had asked about it. And, it's not a party game. It's not a light, fast card game, which are the things that I expect to fly out the door this time of year. People want things to play with their families. But yeah, a 5.5, 6 hour long, heavy strategy game is not what I expect to see just firing out, like a machine gun. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised. One game we sold out of on Black Friday. I wasn't surprised that we sold a ton of it, but I got a ton of copies in. We sold out was Slay the Spire. It's a fantastic game, fantastic video game. I was skeptical about the board game, but everyone says it's amazing, and it is. I've played it several times. But, it's expensive. I think it was an over $100 game, maybe $120 game. I don't remember. But you've got to sort of make bets this time of year. Like, do we bring a lot of this in, risking that maybe we don't sell out and maybe it's going to move slowly over the next year? So I had a ton of Slay the Spire. We made a big display of it and everything, and they were gone.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a giant window display, and we don't even normally do window displays. Right. But this year we figured, well, we've got some really cool big box games. We'll do this nice big holiday window display, and it looked great, I think. Like from the outside, if you're walking by, you see these, towers of games in the window, and then kind of behind them, you can see our holiday tree with Junior, our giant skeleton with stars in his eyes, looming over it. It looked cool, but that stack went super fast.
Yeah, we had several of those big stacks, right? Yeah, like Ticket to Ride Legacy's got a big stack, Dead Cells. Further in the store, we had a huge stack of Sky Team, which ended up being our bestseller of Black Friday weekend. The expansion had just come out, people had talked about it.
And it's a great game.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to see that one has gotten the attention it has.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it genuinely deserves it.
Yeah. Heat, had a big stack of that.
Yeah, nice load-bearing pillar of heat.
A pillar in the middle of the store. Seven Wonders, Duel for Middle Earth is another one. So yeah, it's fun to do those. Like that's a thing in retail. Because it says a lot. It says a lot to customers,
Yeah.
right? They're like, oh, this must be a good game because they have bought so much of them in.
We are
giving them,
confident in this game.
yeah. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I think I was. It's hard to say surprised. I knew Slay the Spire was good and it would do well. We brought in so many of them that I was surprised.
Well, we brought in a ton of them, and again, it's a big ticket item.
Right.
It's not, like Sky Team, relatively inexpensive, kind of family weight game, so no shock that we sold that hand over fist.
Right.
But something that's, what was it, $80, something like that, maybe more.
I think it was over 100.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
I get it and Dead Cells confused.
Yeah.
I think one of them's over 100, one of them's right around the 90
I
mark.
think you're right. I think Slay the Spire was the higher ticket one between them. But
because of all the sleeves. People are like, why is the game so expensive? Well, you have to have a sleeve for every single card in the game because when you upgrade, the cards don't have backs. It's like, here's the level 1 version and then the upgrades on the other side. So you have to sleeve it with an opaque back. And of course, sleeves sometimes fall apart. So the game comes with extra sleeves. So it's like 400 something cards and like 500 sleeves.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why it's so expensive.
it is a hefty box to, like, building that tower was a feat. So
That was fun. Now, I don't know about you this time of year because we're so busy. I don't actually get a chance to play a lot of games.
Yeah.
So I won't say, hey, what have you played recently? Because apparently it's Tower Jenga with boxes of Slay the Spire.
Yeah, that's been the big one.
But, publishers insist on releasing games during the month of December. So some stuff has come out. Has anything really caught your eye that you're like, I can't wait till I get a chance to play this one?
There have actually been several that have really grabbed me and grabbed my imagination. But I think, what is it, Defenders of the Wild?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, a kind of a surprisingly small box, not because it's not a lot of game, but because they really cram that thing full of material. But Defenders of the Wild is a cooperative, asymmetrical sort of territory control game. A little bit like Spirit Island meets Root in a sense. So you're playing as these different factions of anthropomorphic animals trying to defend their forest home from encroaching industrial machinery. And
sounds a lot like Spirit Island.
it does, but it has the asymmetry style of Root. I mean, Spirit Island is asymmetrical too, but there are different ways of doing that. And the way the different factions play compared to each other feels more like Root, even though it's a co-op game. But yeah, that one really grabs my imagination. I mean, thematically it hits home for me, but also mechanically I'm really curious to see how they manage to get everything to fit together and cohere.
Yeah. It does look really cool. Especially, I was surprised at how small that box is because from pictures it looked like a Ticket to Ride size box. But
Carrying a case of it is pretty hefty though. So,
yeah. It's dense.
Yep.
Yeah, that one sounds cool. Just yesterday, a game that we got in, this is another one, it was in the newsletter yesterday, but we sold out yesterday. Part of it's my fault. New Friedman Freeze card game, trick-taking game called Fishing, which wasn't on my radar. Now, I gotta say, my relationship with Friedman Freeze games, I have never finished a game of Power Grid. I've tried playing it twice. Both times, not me, but the players I was playing with were not enjoying themselves, so I never got a chance to get to the end. I'd like to one of these days. But I love Friedman Freese's designs are always incredibly interesting and innovative. He is not afraid to just try stuff.
Yeah.
I think about 504, the game that was like 504 different games in there because you combine, a mechanic and a theme and a this,
Yep.
And consensus on it is like, is it the next best, greatest game? No, it's okay. But I applaud the innovation.
Oh, yeah. The innovation was great on that one. And I used to recommend that to people who wanted to get into game design.
Yes.
Not necessarily because you're going to have the best time playing 504, but because it served as kind of an idea laboratory to see how all these different mechanics can click together.
Yeah. Copycat's another one.
Oh, yeah.
Is where he literally said, I'm going to look at the top, I don't know if it was 5 or 10 games on Board Game Geek. What is their primary mechanism? I'm going to make a game using all of those mechanisms. And like, clearly in the rule book, it's like, hey, I took this from Through the Ages. I took this from Brass, So it does interesting stuff. Well, this small trick-taking game, I'm a sucker for trick-taking games.
We all are here. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of my customers was like, oh, I'm glad to see you got fishing in. And I was like, oh, you've played it? Tell me about it. And it's a trick-taking game that's played over 8 rounds. Starts off the most vanilla trick-taking you can possibly imagine. So trick-taking games are games like Hearts, Spades, Euchre, deck of cards, someone's going to lead a suit, everyone's got to follow suit, whoever played the highest wins it. That's how this starts. There's 4 suits, 1 to 10, and every card that you take that you win is a point. You're just trying to get points. But the cards you take will also become your hand for the next hand. Yeah. So you take cards, and if you've got more than however many you need, you shuffle them up and draw. So taking the high cards is great. But some players are obviously not going to have enough cards for the next hand. So they take what they have, and then they draw cards off the top of this other deck, which is adding more powerful cards. So I mentioned that the suits go 1 to 10. Well, that deck might now have 11s in the suit. So they might get the power. A trump card may be in there. Yep. And so that deck is stacked in sort of increasingly powered order. But you don't know if you're not the one drawing those cards because you've won a lot of tricks that last hand. You don't know what's in play anymore. Like I got the 10 of purple, which is the highest, unless someone has drawn the 11 of purple. I just don't know.
Right.
So it just sounds fascinating. There's a lot of different other things going on, and I love trick-taking games, so I'm going to take that one with me on vacation.
Yeah, that one intrigues me a lot as well. Whenever you were walking me through how that one plays, and you had just opened your copy and were looking,
So a customer tells me about it. Yeah. Immediately we get an online order from one of our regular customers who ordered 2 copies of it, and I'm looking going, there's only a couple left on the shelf. I'm going to take one.
And so, of course, we had to rip it open and take a look at it. And again, a lot of us here at Games Unlimited love trick-taking games, and really the gaming community in the Pittsburgh area, there are a ton of trick-taking game enthusiasts here.
Including what I'm pretty sure is the #1 podcast on trick-taking games. Trick Take, I think it's called Trick Takers?
I think so.
Yeah. But one of our regular customers.
Yeah, Ryan Campbell is one of the hosts, and Ryan also works with Portland Game Collective to import and localize trick-taking games from other parts of the world, mostly from Japan, I believe, and Korea, but they've snagged trick takers from elsewhere and bring them over so that those of us in the U.S. Get a shot at them, which is really awesome. But it shows the kind of enthusiasm we have in the community here for them. And this one has a really interesting gimmick to it, fishing does. And gimmicks to me can be a bad word when it comes to trick takers, because sometimes I feel like they get us away from the heart of what makes a trick-taking game. But when you can dial it in and get it just right so that you still have a trick-taking game at the core, and then are building these interesting new things into it, that's what really gets me fired up. And fishing seems to do that in kind of classic Friedman Friese style.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to trying it. Speaking of trick takers, I went to PAX Unplugged this year. I don't remember if we talked about the fact that I was going in the last. I think we did.
I think we mentioned it.
We might have mentioned it. PAX happens in December. Very hard time for retail. I did not see a lot of retailers at PAX.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Yeah.
Normally I go to Origins, I see tons of retailers. I know.
Yeah. Aren't they doing it a bit earlier next year?
Next year it's going to be the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Should be hopefully a bit easier for retail. I mean, it's still rough, but better than after Thanksgiving.
But I went for the first time, and largely the reason I went is because they were doing a pre-release, limited release of the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, and I needed to get a copy.
If you're new here, Kylie is a Tolkien fanatic. He may or may not have given Elvish middle names to his children.
Yeah, might have been true. Yeah, Tolkien fanatic. But also love trick-taking games like the rest of us.
Yep.
Love the crew. And the thing is, this Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game is cooperative. So it's like a new, okay, when something like the crew comes out that's so innovative, it's like, okay, trick-taking, cooperative. That's awesome. Then they did Crew Deep Sea, did some iterations on it. But when something's that popular, it won Game of the Year.
Yep.
People are going to then take and iterate on. Think of Dominion, which I still consider the best pure deck builder.
I
but
agree.
deck building has been iterated on and like perfected and moved in so many ways. So I was like excited to see what's the next evolution of co-op trick taking. And speaking of Ryan Campbell, I got a chance to play a playtest copy of the game some months ago because he had a playtest copy of it. And I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it weren't for that release, I'm not sure if I would have gone to PAX or not.
Right. But that was enough to get you there.
That was the instigator, and I did get a copy, and we'll talk about more about it. It's coming out for wide release in February.
Yeah.
We've ordered
And
a ton of it.
You will absolutely be hearing from us about it at that time.
Yeah. But I did get a chance to go to PAX, help out my friend Tim Fowers of Fowers Games.
Yep.
So I helped out at his booth a little bit. I walked around. I found some interesting things. He actually introduced me to a friend of his who had a line of scented D&D dice, RPG dice, which, I don't know, the rest of the staff, I think, is a bit dubious, or was a bit dubious.
It's just that my nose is so sensitive. When you brought that box of scented dice in, it was like a punch in the gut.
Hey, I'm the one that had to ride in the car for 4.5 hours.
I don't think I physically could have. That said, once we got them unpacked, let them air out a bit, and actually have them displayed on the shelf, I think they're really cool.
Yeah.
They don't overwhelm, unless you like really shove your nose right in there, but you don't need to smell it.
Right.
You open it up, you get that whiff, and they're actually really well done. They smell like exactly what they say they're going to smell like.
I've taken to calling them the Birdie Bots of dice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was just a cool thing to find. That's what I do when I go to conventions, right? To just look around and see what's cool, what's interesting. I won. So there's a company doing, I don't remember if I told you this. I haven't brought it in and showed you. They're like light up Bluetooth enabled dice.
Yeah.
So like the D20 lights up, but it's also, you can connect it via Bluetooth to your phone. So whatever die you roll, it shows up on your phone. Or if you're playing an RPG online, you can connect it to like Roll20 and stuff. So it's not just push a button, roll the die. You can literally roll the die and everyone you're playing with can see what the result is on their screen.
And if anyone is wondering also, like, what's the use of this? The first thing that came to my mind is one of the people that I game with that's played in several of my campaigns over the years has some visual difficulties. He can find it really difficult to read dice quickly at the table, so that he still gets, would still get the satisfaction of rolling physical dice, but it's going to show up in nice big text on the screen of his phone immediately.
Yeah.
So,
or you can put it on an iPad at the table, or I suppose if you're using one of those fancy, gaming RPG tables with the screen built in, it can be
show up there. But yeah, it's one of those things that sounds just weirdly extravagant, but when you really stop to think about it, there's some genuine utility to that.
The person there was telling me, because they've also kind of open sourced it. So they know someone who has like hooked it up to their smart house. So whenever a 20 is rolled, all the lights in the house like flash. So it's an interesting product. But they also had a thing where they had two D10s, D100 basically. And like, hey, roll the D100. If you roll 100, we're going to give you a free die. Because they're not cheap. They're like $60 a pop. And so I got one. I was like, cool. And it's definitely a product I want to look at maybe bringing in next year.
Yeah, be a cool thing. I mean, especially, D20s and percentiles, sort of
those are the big ones.
The major dice that a lot of RPG systems center around.
Slight problem I just thought of, though. You know me and my particular dice kink. I would want a set of One Ring dice made out of them.
A D12 and how many D6s?
66s. Well, technically now 2 D12.
That's true.
Because the second edition of the One Ring uses Advantage.
Well, that's going to be a really expensive set of dice you're going to construct. But it's not. It won't be the first time you've made an expensive set of dice for the One Ring, though.
It is not. I've done that before. And the other thing too is that, yes, the faces on the dice are the standard numbers,
Yeah.
but you can program your app to show whatever.
Special results
special
for the 1
results.
and the 12 in that case.
Right,
yeah.
in the One Ring, well, actually it's the 11 and the 12.
Okay.
Because it
That's-
goes
oh,
1 to
that's right,
10,
that's right.
and then the 11 is the Sauron, and the
Yeah.
12 is the Gandalf. But you could have those symbols show up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I can't. I'm already thinking about the hover drone for next year.
Oh, Lord. All right. Well, you'll see the results.
See the results of that.
So, speaking of RPGs, though,
Yeah.
why don't we get into our Game of the Year picks for the store? Because
Yeah.
Kylie did his Board Game of the Year shortlist
Which-
and then final reveal.
I apologize now to everyone out there and to you, Chandra. I'm going to need to stop calling it, because I just called it Game of the Year.
Right.
Right, because we hadn't done an RPG of the year in the past, so
Yeah.
definitely, board/card game of the year. I don't know what the
We'll
best way
figure
to-
that out, yeah.
Yes, on the board game side, and you've done one.
I did my RPG of the year. I, really tightened it down to a list of 5 games that I think were all super deserving of attention.
Yeah.
And well, got it down to just one, which was really difficult. Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. We got to see this and meet the designers of this at Gamma. That was really cool. A lot of fun to get to do that.
It was our first time seeing the game.
It was our first time seeing the game. They were kind enough to show us the big slipcase set that they were still in pre-production on. And we were all immediately enamored. All 4 of us from Games Unlimited that went to Gamma together this year were immediately enamored of this. It's just so different from anything else in the RPG space. And the indie space is so creative as it is that to see something even more different, to see something that stands out there, it just thrilled us to see that. So,
really cool.
yeah, Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. Check it out if you're looking for a whimsical slice of life kind of game where it's not about violence, it's about mystery solving, problem solving, bringing people together, and bringing peace and joy into people's lives. And it really does it in a dynamic, fulfilling way that makes a great game.
Yeah.
And it's also just a beautiful artifact to have on your shelves.
And you've talked about in the videos, it isn't just about sales for us, but boy, I've been surprised at how much of that. And we've sold more of the deluxe edition, which is about $150.
This is, if you can see it, it's a robust hardcover book with some extras in there. The deluxe edition is a big old slipcase with, I think, 2 almost equally large books and like a bunch of extras. It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things, you look at it, and it's a crafted, you can tell it's a labor of love.
Oh, yeah.
These people were so into it.
Everyone involved in this really cared about the whole thing. They cared about the art, they cared about the graphic design, they cared about the writing of the text and the game design itself.
Yeah.
Every single element.
Yeah, so I was very surprised. I did not think that was going to get your pick, but I
It earned
love
it
that it is. Yeah,
in a big
it's
way.
So cool.
Yeah. So what did you pick for board game?
Yeah, so board game, I did 8 nominees this year. I think last year I did 6.
Sounds
I
right.
don't have I don't know. I just picked the games that seem cool and the ones that I want to talk about. But from those 8, I narrowed it down. And actually, I think, I often, when I'm recording the video for the finale, I don't know what I'm going to choose at that point. And you helped me because right before hitting record, I was like, Chandra, what would your pick be? And you pointed out 2 games that you said, I've heard you talk most about those games. And I was like, okay, if I'm really just kind of going with my gut, what are the things that I've talked about the most? The one I ended up picking is Endeavor Deep Sea. This was one, I've said it a bunch. I got a chance to play a prototype of it, but I think maybe it was while the Kickstarter was going or just before the Kickstarter launched. And I was mad because I knew it was going to be a year plus before I could play the game again. Because I played it at a convention, I played a prototype, and I was just like, this is amazing. I played a lot of not the original Endeavor. There was a redo, like a second edition of Endeavor. That was one of my pandemic games. I had the people I was potting with during the pandemic, we played Endeavor over and over and over again.
Yeah. There's a lot of game in there. There's a lot of variety.
Right. But it does have that. I mean, it's a colonialist game. You're going out from Europe and colonizing the world. So, thematically, not the greatest cup of tea. So then when they took that engine and made it exploring the ocean, I was super excited. And actually, it feels completely original. Like when I played the prototype, I was like, I'm having a hard time even seeing Endeavor in here.
Yeah.
And unless you've played a lot of the original, you're probably not going to go, oh yeah, I see that this is a copy of this other game. It's its own thing, modular board. I just think this was a fantastic game, a fantastic pick. I think it'll be with us for a long time.
Thematically, I'm into it. I love deep sea stuff. And sort of the awe and fear and sense of discovery that comes from that.
Yeah.
That's up my alley, and you got me to want to try that.
Yeah. And it's got solo co-op and competitive modes, which is normally a flag for me.
Yeah.
Like when I see a game does that, I'm like, oh.
It's a little too kitchen sinky.
Yeah, you're trying to do all the things to appeal to all the people, but are you doing any one of the world? And I've played solo co-op and competitive and love
they all work,
So those are our Endeavor Deep Sea for Board Game of the Year, Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast for RPG of the Year.
Absolutely,
Some pretty good stuff.
So before we get wrapped up here, because we're right about to start our day, the last Friday before Christmas.
Yeah.
But as we're wrapping up here, we do have something else to talk about briefly, and that is the news that's been circulating about TikTok. Because obviously we put these long-form ones places other than TikTok, YouTube primarily right now, but a lot of our content goes first and foremost to TikTok.
It's true.
So if TikTok is potentially being shut down in the US, what does that mean for us?
Yeah, this has been a tough thing. I don't know what's going to happen. Lots of people are saying. I just read today the Supreme Court
is going to look at it. Apparently, the president-elect might look at it as well, but who knows?
Who knows?
It's up in the air.
But
the last thing we've heard is, banned.
Right.
So,
I mean, if you're watching this, if you're watching the full video, you're probably watching it on YouTube where we post the long form content.
Yeah.
That's a special type of audience. People want to do that. But we have found over the past year, since we've been doing TikTok, that's where people are seeing us and following us. And
people come into the store when they're traveling from out of town because they've seen us on TikTok.
They've seen us on TikTok. So. That's been the place where honestly, we've gotten the most exposure. And the goal had been, starting over a year ago, I had this idea of, not to toot our own horn, we're a fantastic, friendly local game store. Not everybody has a local game store or has a local game store that's doing the kind of games they're into. And if we can just show people what we do, that might draw that audience in.
It's a community building exercise
very
more than
much
anything.
So. Very much so.
It serves as advertising, I guess, but first and foremost, it's a way to draw different parts of the gaming community together.
Yeah. And, as I was thinking about this ban and leaving TikTok, I had to think a lot about what is it that makes TikTok different and special for a business. And it's really, we've been on Facebook and Instagram for over a decade. We pay to market on Facebook and Instagram.
You get no reach if you don't.
You get no reach if you don't. It's a pay-to-play system. And we see 10% of the views and engagement on those platforms than we do on TikTok. So, it's really like, oh, yes, those other platforms are very much pay-to-play. TikTok has been able to, its algorithm is able to feed our content to the people who want to see it. To get those followers. It forces us to be creative, and that's been really fun, some of the things that we've been doing.
For sure.
But I just, on the other platforms, we can't compete with big companies that spend millions of dollars on advertising to be seen. So, obviously we're going to keep trying to do what we're doing on TikTok on other platforms. And, if it does go away, hopefully those algorithms get better. Because it's really I don't want to toot the horn of the TikTok algorithm too much, but what it's done is it can figure out this is what Games Unlimited is doing and offering. These are the people that are interested in that, which is what I pay our marketing person money to do on Facebook and Instagram. And, doesn't do it nearly as well as this algorithm.
Yeah.
So
not that it's a problem with our marketing guy.
no,
it's a problem with
it's a problem with
those companies with the way they do things.
Right.
It makes it really hard for our marketing guy to get our message out there.
Exactly. So obviously, I hope it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And if it does, we're just going to have to reevaluate, maybe change some things about our videos to try to make it work on the other platforms. But we'll continue to do content in some.
We'll find a way. Is the point here? Look for us. You're already here on YouTube, but just look for us anywhere and everywhere, and you'll find us. We'll keep putting stuff out because we have fun doing it.
Yeah, and it looks like the crowds are ready at the door, so it's probably getting close to 11. Time to open up.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you in 2025.
Happy holidays.